and gentlemen. This is Dr. Kukengodi, the course lecturer for AEM501. We are on to week 5 of this particular course, and at the end of this study, the students should be able to list the various sampling techniques and, of course, explain the different statistical tools and techniques. This is a very important aspect of this course, the aspect that teaches you on what we call sampling and probability. Sampling and probability is something we'll be hearing about, and at this point in time, we are coming to see it by ourselves and know how to put it into use. It's going to be an interesting aspect of this course, and so I enjoin you to please participate actively and give your time to this course, and you'll be glad you did. Thank you for listening and have a good time. You're welcome to this class, AEM501. This is week 5 of this particular course. At the end of this unit, the students should be able to list the various sampling techniques and explain the different statistical tools. Yes, we are on to module 3 of this course, and we'll be treating unit 1. And it talks about statistical theory and different statistical methods for handling statistical data. Unit 1, Sampling and Statistical Tools, Introduction. This session has to do with the collection of data that are relevant to investigate the research problem of the student. The data that are needed in the student study are numerous, and so there are different sampling methods to use in getting his data done. The sample chosen must be selected to suit the study. And now the question is, why do we use sample? We use sample for different reasons. When the research problem is specified and the research design is developed along line with the development of data collection instrument, this step is followed by the selection of those elements from which the information will be collected. One way of doing this is to collect information from each member of the population. Another way is to collect information from a portion of the population by taking a sample. Why take samples? We are continuing. We are getting to why do we need to take samples instead of using the population. So we take samples because it helps in reducing the cost of carrying out the study, and of course, it helps it possible for the study to be completed within a timely gathering information. Survey research depends heavily on the process of sampling and on asking questions, either through questionnaires, interviews, or observations. There is no special training or skill required for this. What is important is for the researcher to ask and be sure that the sample chosen is a representation of the information collected of the universe or population. The two terms universe and population are used interchangeably. A population may be defined as the totality of a particular characteristic for any specified group of individuals or objects. A population may be finite or infinite. A population is infinite if it consists of limited number, and it is infinite when it consists of unlimited number. Therefore, its members cannot be. The population can be counted, like we said before, if it is infinite, or when it cannot be counted, it becomes infinite. Then we go to sample. A sample may be defined as a selected number from a population to represent it. Generally, this selection is done according to some rules or plan. By studying the sample, some inferences may be made about the population. Statistic and parameter. A statistic is a characteristic of a sample, but a parameter is a characteristic of a population. The word parameter is used to indicate various technical measures like mean, median, mode, standard deviation, correlation, etc. in the population or universe. Such statistical measures describe the characteristic of a population. Statistics as they are based on the characteristic of a given sample. The sample means is a sampling frame. The element or object to be sampled or a large unit containing the object is called sampling unit. But a list of other representation of elements in the population from which the sample is selected is called a sample frame. Lists such as membership names are often used. Other names include organizations, directories, telephones, directories, etc. as a frame for conducting opinion survey. Sampling error is a major problem in using samples. Sometimes samples are virtually never identical to their parent populations. This difference between a sample and its population is referred to as sampling error. No two samples from the same population will be identical. They will be composed of different individuals. They will have different scores on a test or other measure, and they will have different sample mean. A sampling error is therefore defined as the difference between a parameter value and the sample estimate of a character, which occurs when sampling is done from the population. The magnitude of the sampling error depends upon the nature of the population. The more homogeneous the population is, the smaller the sampling error. On the reverse, the more heterogeneous the population is, the larger the error. Then we go to probability. Probability may be defined as the relative frequency of an event occurring, usually reported as a percentage or fraction. The probability of rolling 5 on dice is 1/6 because there are 6 possibilities on lines. The probability of a tail or a single toss of coin is 1/2 or 0.5. The probability of 0.05 means that an event is likely to occur 5 times out of 100 times. That is 5/100. So it takes place in the same situation. Method of selecting a random sample. For selection of a random sample, the table of random numbers may be used. The table may be entered at one point and read in any direction, to the right, to the left, up the column, down the column, or diagonally, using a different starting point and reading plan. A different but equally good set of random numbers may be obtained from types of sampling methods. We have both probability sampling method and non-probability sampling. In talking about the probability sampling methods, in probability sampling method, the size of the parent population or universe from which the sample is to be drawn must be known to the researcher. Besides, each element of individual in the population must have an equal chance of being included in subsequent sampling. The positive point of probability sampling method is that the obtained samples are considered representative, and therefore the conclusions derived from such sample are what generalization probability sampling provides for calculating the standard error of the distribution. Probability sampling methods. We have 3 different types of the probability sampling methods. These are the simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, and the cluster. In the case of the simple random sampling, a simple random sampling may be defined as a probability sampling method in which each element in the population has an equal and independent chance of being selected. A random selection of cassava growing farmer in the local government would have been such that every farmer in the area had equal chance of being selected. As an advantage, this sampling method is bias-free. Thus, the sample has a high probability of being representative of the population. As a disadvantage, it does not ensure that the elements which exist in small numbers in the population will be included in a sample. Stratified random sampling. In stratified random sampling, the population is first divided into 2 or more homogeneous subclasses or strata. which may be based upon a single criterion such as sex, yielding two strata, male or female, upon a combination of two or more criteria such as sex and level of education, and so on and so forth. A simple sample of the desired number may be taken from each population stratum using the table of random numbers. This stratification tends to increase the precision of the analysis because of the homogeneity. Then we go to cluster sampling. This is a random sampling method in which the sampling units are not individual elements of the universe, but groups of elements or clusters. This method has some practical advantage. It is easier to test all individuals or farmers in a few communities or societies than to test a group of farmers scattered at random throughout all the communities of the area. The limitation or disadvantage is that this method has large. Ladies and gentlemen, after this we'll be looking at the tutor and marked assignment. But let it be stressed that this unit has not ended. It will continue next week with the non-probability sampling. But for this probability sampling that we have just done, these are the tutor and marked assessment, which you have to go through. Therefore, and they will help in enlarging your scope of what is concerned. Thank you.